Okay, so picking up right where we left off, one of the things that you're going to discover is that game design is an iterative process. That sometimes what makes something work at one point in the game has to be changed in order to scale. So in the previous video, we were destroying the weeds when you clicked on them, which was fine. It was a great beginning to demonstrate that the click function was working and that it was differentiating between when you had clicked on the scythe or not. Okay, but we really don't want that. We really don't want to destroy this. We just want it to display a different image. Well, how is that possible? Simple. A single object can store many different images. So when you create an object, if you choose to put a sprite on it, it shows up here. But through scripting, you can actually assign all different sprites to it. So let's take a look at that. So right now we have a script attached to the weed called plant control. So let's go out to plant control. So here it is. So at the top, what we're going to do is we're going to put in public sprite, and we're going to call it no plant obj. So no plant object. I'm going to save that. So over here, no plant object now appears, and since I made a change to script, any object that the script is attached to has been modified. Having said that, when we drag and drop the image, we need to make sure we have them all highlighted. So let's go ahead and take the no plant image. It's basically a null image. It's just a background image, so it doesn't show up at all. And this I added in between videos. Alright, so now let's watch what happens. So we get rid of destroy. Let's leave it then in case something eventually requires it to be destroyed. And we're going to replace this with get component sprite renderer. So if you haven't seen any of my other videos, I'll quickly walk through get component. So an object, see how it says add component? Well, it's not a coincidence. These are what that statement get component are referring to. Well, which component? Sprite renderer. How about that? There is a component called sprite renderer. And then what attribute are we going to change? We're going to change sprite. And there it is. So you're drilling down just as it appears in the inspector. Now that's not always the case, like when you get into rigid body 2Ds and things like that. But in this case, you're saying, okay, I want a component, I want the sprite renderer component, I want to change the sprite. So this is written out just the way that it appears in the inspector. And we want to set it to no plant object. So before we were actually destroying the weed. Now we're just going to change it to a blank image. So again, when we click first, nothing should happen. We click on our scythe, and now they're not actually being destroyed, because if you notice over here in the hierarchy, the weeds are still here. We've just changed the image. And that is pivotal, because what's going to happen is using this principle of changing sprites, what we're going to do is we're going to change the name from weed to something like all plants. And depending on what seeds you plant will depend on what image appears. So let's go ahead and we're going to add the sprout. And we're going to add the sunflower. So let's call it public sprite sprout. Actually, let's call it sunflower 1 and public sprite sunflower 2. So what's going to happen is, at least in these early stages, we'll only have 2 images per flower. So the first one will be the sprout, and the second one is when it's full size and ready to be harvested. So let's go ahead and save that. And now what we want to do is we want to add the tool to the UI for when you plant. So let's take the seeds image, put it into the scene. We'll drag and drop it, or I should say drag it, over towards where the scythe is. Now, it's important that you don't want their collider boxes to overlap. Alright, so we got the seeds. We're going to click on Physics 2D, and we're going to click on Box Collider. Let's double check. So we'll highlight them both. And that's good. They are not overlapping. Alright, so we need to set this as a trigger, or else it cannot be clickable. Now, what we could do is we could create a single script for the UI for all the images that you click on. So let's take a look to see. Yeah, let's do that. So even though this is called Reap, we can always rename it later. So let's click on the seeds and then drag and drop Reap onto it and watch what we do. We're going to do if game object, so in other words whatever the script is attached to, dot name, because you can check its name, double equal sign, scythe, so if game object.name is equal to scythe, then current tool is equal to scythe. Conversely, if other name, if game object.name is seeds, then current tool equals seeds. And actually, let's reactivate this to make sure it's working. So we'll save this. Oh, sorry, I forgot to bring this to the front. We said that UI would be layer, ordered in layer 5. There we go. It's detecting seeds, detecting scythe, detecting seeds. So now, rather than having to add a whole new script, you're using one script for the UI. So we'll probably go back and rename this at some point, but it's fine for now. Okay, so getting there. What we now do is when we click on the weed object, okay, so got to keep track of what we're doing. This reap is on the UI objects. Plant control is on the weeds. So right now we're saying on mouse down if GM script current tool is equal to scythe, then change the sprite to no plant object. Similarly to what we just did in the other script, we have to mirror it. If current tool is equal to seeds, then it should be changed to sunflower 1. Now, this is setting up so as that there's only one type of plant, but again, game design is an iterative process. We'll get it to work for one seed, and then as we do later videos, we can add different types of seeds. So sometimes you kind of have to you put code into place that you're going to break later, like we did with the destroy command, just to be able to it's like a proof of concept that you can add that functionality. Okay, so again, we click on this, make sure nothing happens. Click on the scythe, they're blank. Click on the seeds, and I know I did wrong. Sorry about that. I forgot to actually drag and drop them. So we created the variables. We just didn't actually drag and drop them. So the code is fine. I just forgot to drag them to their corresponding variables. So we established the variable for the object. We just didn't actually assign the variables to the object. So sorry about that. Let's do this again now. So clicking, nothing happens. Clicking on this gets rid of the weeds. Click on this, and now you've planted your sprouts. So once that's done, the next step would be to add a timer, and once the timer reaches a certain amount, then it changes to the next sunflower, to the next image. And when you get more complicated, then you say, okay, you have to collect water. So you're probably going to create another icon down here, like a bucket. Right now I've got the potion icon from another one. So let's put that timer in. And there's actually one other weakness with this. Right now it just looks to see if you've clicked on this and this. So technically, if I'm not mistaken, you can go right from seed to sprout, which is obviously you don't want to. So as you get more complex, you have to make sure that you're taking into account the things the players might try to do. So we'll need to put some code in to prevent that from happening. So I suppose let's put it right in here actually. So so this is the plant control. So this is actually determining what image is being displayed. So let's do get component sprite renderer. Should look familiar. We're about to do exactly what we did a moment ago, except we're not setting it, we're checking it. Sprite equals no plant. And let's see if that does it. Okay, just needed a second equal sign. So now we cut them. There we go. Perfect. Excellent. So that quickly we're able to take care of the, for want of a better term, the exploit or the defect. So what we did is we appended to this get component sprite renderer sprite double equal sign, because we're not setting it to that, we're checking to see if it is that. So when you set it, it's a single equal. When you check, it's a double equal. And before I made that fix, I said that we were going to add a timer. This is actually quite easy. So we're in the plant control script. So public. Let's do a float, and we'll call this grow time, and we'll set it to 0. Because this is not a static variable, every object that the script is attached to will have its own unique grow time variable. So there are 3 objects it's attached to, all 3 will have unique grow time. So even when one changes, the other will not. They will be independent of each other. So now what we want to do is in the update section, grow time plus equals, that is, you're increasing that variable by a certain amount, time dot delta time. Time dot delta time is a built-in function. What it does is it says how much time has changed, hence the word delta, because delta refers to change. So time dot delta time, however much time has changed since the last frame, gets added into grow time. So this becomes a cumulative value. But we only want that to happen if this has been planted. So for now, let's just take this and we're going to make one change. So if the current image, rather than being no plant object, if it's sunflower 1, and again we'll have to, as we have more plants, we'll have to change that. But again, for now, to get the basic shell into place, kind of do this placeholder code, placeholder graphics for that matter. Alright, so if the current sprite is sunflower 1, then go ahead and start increasing grow time. And it's happening every single frame because it's in the update section. Now what we want to do is we want to check grow time. If grow time is equal to, actually it's very unlikely that you're going to get an even number because it's a decimal, so we'll say if it's greater than 3 seconds. In your game you'd actually want it to be more than that, but again, this is for demonstrative purposes. If we set it for 5 minutes, then we have to sit here for 5 minutes to see if it works. And we're doing more of the same, that once 3 seconds has elapsed, we want to change the sprite. In this case, it's a single equal because we're setting the value to sunflower 2. Alright, so we've done two things. We're checking to see if the image is set to sunflower 1, which occurs here when you click on the seed icon and then you click on this object. If that's the case, so if it's set to sunflower 1, then increment grow time by the change in time every single frame. Once grow time exceeds 3 seconds, then go ahead and change it from sunflower 1 to sunflower 2. And again, be mindful that if you're doing an if, it's a double equal sign. If you're setting it, it's a single equal sign. And let's give that a run. Didn't like 3017. Oh, sorry, forgot semicolon. So we will. There we go. 3 seconds later it grew. And just to demonstrate that they're on their own timers, that is to add a timer.